In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. Almost overnight, the United States watched its only global rival fracture into pieces. This created a unipolar world order. For nearly 3 decades, America possessed unmatched military strength, economic influence, and technological leadership. At that same time, China was making a pivot. Under Deng Xiaoping, the nation began a period of reform and opening up, modernizing its industry and encouraging foreign investment to escape decades of economic isolation. American leaders initially believed that pulling China into global trade networks would make the country more politically liberal. They gambled that economic integration would eventually force the adoption of a democratic system. China successfully extracted the wealth of global integration while entrenching its one-party political system. The United States helped build a manufacturing giant, only to find itself facing a rival it is now strategically dependent upon. Western corporations moved manufacturing operations to China to exploit low production costs and a massive workforce. This shift turned China into the primary factory for the global economy. This produced one of the fastest growth rates in history. Hundreds of millions of people escaped poverty as Chinese cities transformed into dominant economic centers. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed a terrifying vulnerability. The United States realized its critical supply chains relied almost entirely on Chinese factories that were suddenly shuttered or unreachable. Washington responded by launching a trade war and pursuing policies of de-risking. The goal was to reduce dependence on Chinese imports and bring strategic manufacturing back to American soil. This economic partnership handed immense leverage directly to a rival superpower. The pursuit of cheap labor created a strategic trap that now defines the competition. China used its manufacturing wealth to fund a leap into advanced sectors. The battleground shifted from simple consumer goods to the race for artificial intelligence and quantum computing. This invisible war relies on advanced semiconductor chips, the essential brains for AI and modern military equipment. The U.S. now restricts exporting chip-making technology to China. By controlling this bottleneck, Washington aims to cripple its rivals' military capabilities. China responded by pouring massive state funding into domestic chip production and establishing a dominant lead in green energy technologies like electric vehicles. Technological leadership has become an existential requirement for national security. Global influence now depends on who controls the most advanced systems. Economic and tech gains directly finance China's military modernization. Beijing rapidly expanded its naval power and developed highly advanced hypersonic missile systems to deliberately challenge American influence in Asia. In the South China Sea, Beijing bypassed international law by transforming reefs into militarized artificial islands. These bases threaten freedom of navigation for trillions in annual trade, giving China physical control over a global economic artery. The United States is fortifying military alliances with nations like Japan, Australia, and the Philippines. These partnerships are designed to contain Chinese expansion across the Indo-Pacific. 2 heavily armed navies are now operating in dangerous proximity. The abstract economic rivalry has produced a very real physical standoff. All 3 fronts of this new Cold War converge on one geographic flashpoint. Taiwan is a self-governed democracy and critical U.S. ally, but China claims the island as its territory. This friction has resulted in frequent, massive Chinese military drills. Taiwan holds a global economic trump card, TSMC, manufacturer of the world's most advanced semiconductors. A military blockade or disruption here would instantly paralyze the global tech industry. The world's digital infrastructure depends entirely on this single island. A conflict in Taiwan triggers a regional war and a worldwide economic depression simultaneously. It is the ultimate powder keg of the 21st century. China is also expanding its global diplomatic influence through the Belt and Road Initiative. By funding infrastructure projects worldwide, Beijing creates long-term political and economic ties across multiple continents. History provides few parallels. The Soviet Union was a military threat with a weak economy, while 1980s Japan was purely an economic competitor. China is the first nation capable of challenging the United States across all dimensions simultaneously: economy, technology, military, and diplomacy. This power struggle is intensified by an ideological divide. It is a competition between the American model of liberal democracy and the centralized one-party system of the CCP. The United States is locked in a multi-front conflict with an opponent it cannot afford to fully disconnect from. This sprawling rivalry will define global stability for the remainder of the century.